Right, let's start going.
All right.
I'll start the theme tune. Right, and we're back with another 14 words for you. Are you ready? Are you ready?
All right. Yeah. It's all right. I had this audio on.
Oh, you got. Are you with us now?
Are we here?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah. Right. Okay. We're on. We're going. Right. See, I don't know until someone says something. Right. I said at the start of the part one of the Political Sorcery show that you won't hear this stuff on the BBC, but actually you may have heard, or you may have heard, or would have heard some of it because we didn't get to the material I was referring to. But don't fear, because we're here now, and so you won't hear this stuff we're going to talk about on the BBC, because although it's not we're not revealing any sort of secrets of any secret cults here, but the stuff we're going to talk about is not very well known. So what we have to get in, what we have to think about is people in power, groups of power. They want the edge, don't they? They want the edge, and they'll do anything to get it. And I think this edge has been gained in the past in a political context, a political power context, from the ancient people sacrificing children to strange gods, as is mentioned in the Bible, all the way up to modern day New Age and Wiccan festivals run by MI5 to divert people who are sincerely interested in the occult away from the effective magical systems such as Enochian and the Goetia, because there's a lot of people who are earnestly interested in the occult, and I think the powers that be don't want people doing that. They want people diverted into these easy sort of like, I'm not knocking Wiccans, I'm sure it's quite a powerful thing if you're that way inclined, but there's more to it. Like everything in this world, there's more to it than the surface stuff.
Well, it's kind of like homeopathy, isn't it? They want to steer you towards the ineffective stuff, don't they?
Yeah, they don't want it, do they?
Yeah.
And so I think from it seems to me like the more I look at this stuff, almost everything has this sort of occult tinge to it, or this occult. We get the surface stuff, don't we? But there always seems to be something else going on, bubbling on behind the scenes. Like I think with the British royalty, like the changing of the guard and the ceremony of the keys.
Can you just elaborate on what was it? The Enochian and what are the two types?
They're the two main effective magical systems.
So what's the difference between the two? Because I don't know the difference. So.
All right.
Just you got like a TLDR on both of them.
Yeah. Enochian was discovered by Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly in the late 1500s. And it's supposedly like angelic communications that they got through various scrying methods. And it's all very elaborate and strange. But I personally don't think it came from angels. I think it came from some kind of, not evil spirit, but some sort of intermediate type spirits. Because one of the entities they contacted ordered them or strongly recommended that they should swap wives, like Dr. John D. and Edward Kelly, which was a big no-no back in those days because it broke at least one of the 10 commandments. So I don't think an angel of God would have advised them to do that, and so that's got a sort of dark tinge to it. And the Goetia or the Goetia seems to have emerged in a series of grimoires called the Lemegeti. I can never say it right. The Lemegeti. I'm not going to say it, the Legevtamon or something, but or the Greater and Lesser Key of Solomon, which are sort of a series of, I think it's 5 grimoires that emerged again, seemingly in the 16th century, which it concerns more darker magic, like the sort of the 72 demons involved in the system, and they're supposed to be the sort of inverse or the reverse of the 72 names of God. And I wouldn't recommend anyone dabbling in either systems, because you do tend to get some quite startling results. So if you're not prepared for it, don't dabble in that kind of thing. Especially with the Goetia, because even looking at the Goetia, the sigils of the demons, like when someone looks at them, the demon also knows that they're looking at them, sort of thing. So even just like idly looking at the sigils can cause a manifestation. So unless you're like really clued in, to leave it alone. But
just put that anywhere.
Yeah, but like I was saying, I mean, the British royalty are well into it, aren't they? I mean, you know, on the weird family stakes, they're quite high up there, aren't they? But because it seems to me, I've just got a notice coming up saying my microphone's being shared. Am I still coming out?
Yeah, you're still coming out fine.
All right, yeah.
You might still be, might still be in Jitsi that we were playing with. Oh, we're still in Jitsi, aren't we?
I think that's all right. Yeah, because I think the British royal family, or the one we've got now, they're Nazis, aren't they? But they also think they're Jews, like descended from King David, which is very, very kind of strange, isn't it? I mean, they're always Sieg Heil, aren't they, or sort of dressing up as Nazis, but they also seem to think that they're part of the sort of ancient holy bloodline dating back to King David. So I think they're into all this stuff anyway. I think the changing of the guard and the ceremony of the keys, which they do in public, I think are magical operations. Like, they're performed to demonstrate the monarch's power over his or her subjects, like many who would willingly go to war and die for them, which is quite a large amount of power to hold over someone. But I think they also do these ceremonies in public to sort of as a display of power for the demons, like when they try to make pacts with them. It's a demonstration of their power, and I think that sort of thing is going on because Freemasons.
It's all done very magically, isn't it? Like the opening of Parliament with Black Rod and the way he does things and things like that.
I mean, they look like rituals to me, magical rituals, which I think they are. Public as well. It's got to be public, hasn't it? Which is interesting because these things are normally done in secret, but this is all being done in public. Because the Freemasons, before World War II, they used to do ceremonies in public, but when the Second World War started, they stopped it.
God's Own in the chat says, "Do we think Meghan does voodoo?" I think she's a Kabbalah girl, isn't she?
God, I wouldn't like to say, but they're all at it. I think, you know. Why was there that weird photo of the Queen dressed in sort of a purple cloak, riding her horse just hours after that girl was found dead on her Sandringham estate? Very odd. As they say, there's that phrase, and it sends a message, and they're sending messages.
Well, there was definitely a message sent. You seen that picture of Charles being poked by one of the Rothschilds? You ever seen that picture?
I think I vaguely remember
banging him right in the chest. He is.
Well, as I say, he's one of them, I think, or they want to be. I think
he's quite low down in the pecking order.
I heard he was promised Israel, Prince Charles, that the Masonic promised him Israel, not Israel, you know, that Dome on the Rock temple, but because he was going to be sacrificed.
He's quite into his weird stuff, isn't he?
Yeah, they let it known that he's into like the surface New Age stuff, don't they? But I think he's into more than that. Because there was rumours he was going to be sacrificed at the Millennium at the Canary Wharf building, but you know, because they were going to sacrifice him so that the occult Sun King Prince William could come in and seize the throne. But we'll have to do a show on all that because that's all strange, you know. Because Prince William's birth was induced so he would be born on the summer solstice, and he's blonde-haired and blue-eyed and. Yeah.
So you're saying he's going the same way as Edward Woodward in The Wicker Man, then, eh? Is that what he's saying?
I think there's something like that going on. I don't know.
Well, his future generations have certainly been sacrificed, haven't they?
Well, his mum certainly was, weren't she?
Yeah.
I just found that photo of Princess Diana with the 13 pentagrams on her black and silver sparkly dress. And, you know, she hit the 13th pillar. And But sort of conversely to all this, like, what could be called the occult establishment, there's also an opposition to it, like flag burning. Like, surely flag burning is a curse against the whole country. You know, they're always burning flags, aren't they? It's quite a nasty thing to do, really, you know.
It's not a nice thing.
And where do they get all these flags from, as someone once said? You know, all these third world countries, they're all burning flags. Well, where do they get the flags from? You know, do they sell them? I don't know. But
the effigies, they can soon knock up an effigy, can't they?
The old effigies, yeah.
They like banging up an effigy, don't they? The old Arabs, don't they?
Throwing shoes at it and that, yeah. But often the opposition to the occult establishment is laughably disorganised and ineffectual. Like, they march up and down the street, sort of screeching like simple childish slogans, like retards, really, and sort of always going on about petitions, like, oh, we've got to do a petition, but it's just smoke and mirrors, diverting the discourse, because in legal terms, a petition's got no more power than a letter from someone. So I don't know why this stuff about petitions goes on. And I think it's interesting, all this Groyper stuff that's going on at the moment, because I see that as a direct lineage back to the Druidic bards, who were known for writing curse poems. The power of the bard could like big someone up or sort of take someone down, which is sort of interesting.
Well,
it's like sort of resurging. But
do you think Trump kind of like makes a spell on people with his, you know, like little Marco Rubio and low energy Jeb Bush or something? Do you think it's like do you think that's like a magical thing? It's like he's cast a hex on them, isn't it?
They're very thought out, I think, aren't they? They're very concentrated news friendly segments of word, aren't they? Word and phrase. Like, he knows that's going to be like retweeted and talked about. I think the key to this sort of Druidic power stuff is that, like, most artists are very selfish, aren't they? They just create for themselves. But I think the bard creates for the whole country, or the people of the whole village or district or country, where like he speaks it, but everyone else is thinking it, sort of thing. That's sort of he catches something what's in the air, and that's how I think that works. But
well, it kind of happens with our folk heroes as well, doesn't it? Because William Wallace was little more than a cattle rustler, wasn't he? But that book was written about him, wasn't it? Like 200 years later, and then he became like a Robin Hood type figure, didn't he?
It catches on. I hate to say it, but that I hate that word viral. But you know, these things do go viral, don't they? And that's bardic magic, I think. Because I think political sorcery, it's the elephant in the room, but like so few people seem to want to talk about it or even acknowledge the possibility that it goes on. But if you look at the history books, I mean, it's always gone on. I mean, King James, he was terrified of witches, wasn't he? So he brought out the Witchcraft Act in 1563 that made witchcraft illegal. And people don't do that unless they're seriously into it. I don't think he did it because he had some sort of surface normal political motive. I think he was genuinely scared of witches doing him in, I think. Although even after that was done, I think there was a conspiracy to kill him and his wife Anne when they were on their North Sea voyage. So that didn't seem to help.
Well, what's his name? Was it Charlie's uncle? What's his name? Mountbatten.
Mountbatten, yeah.
Yeah, he died, didn't he, at the hands of the
IRA, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did he? Yeah. Yeah. I think, who knows what causes these things, but and you had Madame de Montespan in the 1660s. They were doing all black magic and stuff to gain the favour of the French King Louis the 14th. I mean, that's all sort of quite well known. It just seems obvious that.
If you looked into much of the Pepe stuff, do you buy the Pepe as Egyptian? Because he's supposed to. Is it Kep?
Oh yeah,
the Egyptian frog god or something, isn't it?
I don't know whether the person who thought it up wasn't thinking about that when he thought it up, and he just found it out later, which might be interesting. But personally, I can't stand that fucking Pepe. I find it really annoying.
Oh, you're going to upset the chat. You're going to lose the chat. Zero.
Well, it's like each to his own, but I don't know. That's a bit. I can see how annoying it is, and that's part of its power. I mean,
well, it's energy. Yeah. It's creating energy, isn't it?
Well, it just winds people up, doesn't it? If they're being attacked, or their reputation's being attacked by a cartoon frog, it's crazy.
Well, Hillary lost her shit over a cartoon frog, didn't
she? That's right. Yeah.
Is it because? Do you think it's because she realises the power of it? Because I mean, if anybody's doing some heavy duty witchcraft, it's her, and it looks like she's paying the toll, doesn't it?
I think they do. Yeah, they all know about it. Yeah, I'm sure Trump's got magical protection around him. Yeah.
Well, there was those witches recently, weren't they? That attempted to hex him, didn't they?
Yeah, they all watch what they're doing though, because someone that high up is going to have magical protection, so that could rebound on them. But I like the NPCs better than Pepe. I think that's a very telling. Is it NPCs? Those non-player?
Yeah, characters? The grey ones. Well, you know what an NPC is, don't you? You've never been much of a gamer.
I'm not, but I know what it.
So an NPC is basically, the characters you come across in computer games that spit out certain dialogues, which is kind of right when you encounter some of them on Twitter, isn't it?
It's very telling though, those memes with the NPCs.
Yeah.
I can imagine an actual sort of human NPC reading that and thinking, "Oh my god, yeah, that's me."
Deny hard.
So shall we get on to the British Occult Bureau? Right.
Go on then. Let's hear about
the British Occult Bureau, aka Bob.
Oh, hold on a sec. Just before you do, what's hexing? Hexing has a threefold rule. What does that mean?
I think that's. I know what it is, but I can't quite place it. It's something about if you hex someone, you get it back 3 times.
Right.
If you shouldn't do it, but if someone deserves to be hexed, you don't get any comeback. So it just depends, sort of. I think it's just to stop people going crazy with it, because you do tend to get ricochets or comebacks if you're cursing everyone left and centre. But someone who really deserves it, who sort of deserves to be beaten up, no, I've got no problem with that. Well, according to my research, the British Occult Bureau, aka Bob, was established in the late 16th century. I know it's funny, Bob, but that's what it means. But and that goes into Twin Peaks, I suppose, a Twin Peaks reference. But
when I was at school, a Bob was a bloke or bird when you couldn't tell whether it was male or female.
Oh, really? That's a good one. Yeah. Well, that possibly might have some relation to this. I don't know. There's all the There's that African tribe that dresses up as women, innit, and jump up and down a lot. They're supposed to be shamans, aren't they?
The penis.
Well, I think...
They steal penises as well, do they?
Right, yeah.
They're quite funny. The old penis stealing panics in Africa.
Yeah. Oh. But this British lot, the British occult bureau, I'm pretty sure that they were they created themselves in the late 16th century with the aforementioned John Dee, and later on Aleister Crowley and Dennis Wheatley, the Devil Rides Out bloke. And I mean, I've read enough to see that there was pretty obviously some sort of occult, but also psychological warfare, a kind of strange mixture of the two, because I think they sort of go together. And they also go together with show business, I think, or performance art, this sort of thing. It's all part of the same. They all share the same kind of interest and the same kind of processes, I think. Because now that's another thing I can't remember. There's an interesting sort of part of like stage magic, you know, all that stage magic stuff. It's called actually something by them, and it's a group of people who are stage magicians, but they're interested in the point where like stage magic becomes proper occult magic.
Sounds like some occult magic going on with you.
That wasn't me.
Oh, wasn't it?
I didn't do any. No, it wasn't.
Sorry, that was me.
It's Hobbit. We have a wild Hobbit in the chat.
A real Hobbit.
Let me put my headphones on, and then I can be courteous.
So yeah.
Got to freak me out a bit then.
Yeah, we haven't seen Hobbit on 14 Words for a while. It's his comeback show. Carry on, Tiro. He'll just slide into the chat.
Welcome back, Hobbit. Yeah. Because John Dee actually did invent the term the British Empire in his general and rare memorials pertaining to the perfect art of navigation, 1577. So, I mean, this guy was certainly into it, and he had the backing of Queen Elizabeth I, aka the Fairy Queen. So, you know.
So you're saying? So what are you saying then? That the British Empire was like they faked it till they made it? Is that what you're saying about the British Empire? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think they created it by magic. I think.
Yeah, I don't mean. I mean, like they created the term the British Empire and then kind of made it happen. Like,
right.
You know.
Yeah, I think.
What kind of magic? Like the magic of intention, isn't it?
Yeah, like a power word to sort of encapsulate the intent of what they were doing. Yeah, they needed a name, didn't they? Yeah.
I'll say fake it till you make it, but it's kind of like, you know, you create the intention and then you get what you want.
I know what you mean. Yeah. That's got a bit of a negative connotation. For musicians are sort of like, oh, you faking it till you make it. But that is true. I mean, we are faking it. We're faking everything till we make it, really, aren't we? When it comes to our crazy brains.
All of these like reality stars and people like that, they're just purely faking it till they make it, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just famous because they're famous, aren't they? They didn't do anything particularly amazing. Anyhow, I think the British Empire was created by occultists, perhaps with the help of these Enochian angels, because you can imagine having angels on your side. That's going to give you a very good edge, isn't it? Because it's going to tell you when to sail, where the storms are, where to avoid, and where to attack. And
so these angels, then, do you believe they're like the Christian angels, or are they some other sort of entity, or what's your theory on the angels?
I wouldn't say they were strictly sort of Judo-Christian angels. They seem to have a darker tinge to them.
Yeah,
I've known people who've worked the system, and it sort of goes fine, and then there's a sort of quite a dark thing. Like there's a sort of, they come to a door with like a real loud growl behind it and stuff like that. And speaking of growls, there's a growling dog there, but you know, there's a sort of dark
spare. I think it's the fireworks.
All right, yeah. Because these spooks, like, if you've got these angels on your side when they're creating the, it sounds crazy to say this, like, yeah, the British Empire was invented by angelic forces and occultists, but I think it's certainly possible. But That's when you think of the term spooks.
So
Like
in your mind, these angels, do they have a relation to demons? Are they like in that sense they're the opposite of demons, or are they just kind of the same force but slightly different?
I'm loath to sort of categorize these entities because they seem to partake of both sides, depending on A, how they feel, and B, the state of mind of the person who's contacting them. Because there's a theory that a lot of these beings aren't particularly supernatural, but they're actually sort of our ancient ancestors. They're actually human spirits, which is an interesting theory. In that there may be sort of like tribal chieftains who were worshipped in the past, and after they died, they were worshipped. So they gained power through that.
Well, so something like oh, what's his name? King Arthur. You know, where they say
Exactly.
he'll always come back when the country's in danger. You mean that kind of thing?
I think it's certainly possible. Yeah, he's
Oh,
real.
Jesus Christ. Hi guys, I'm
All right.
back finally. Technical issues. I could even get into it. No, I need a 1/4 inch headphone jack because the 3.5mm one doesn't bloody work. Can I just say, I've been listening to some of the Fortean episodes with you in it, Zero, and I've really been interested in what you've had to say. I need to get you in the pub sometime so you can meet my mate, who I think you get on very well with. And my gain's way too high, so let me just turn that down. What you were saying there about the Elizabethan Navy fighting the Spanish Armada, no, you didn't mention that specifically, but like kind of like the USA of today, back then was the Spanish Empire and their armada. And the British won against them. Well, for a start, we had the weather on our side, so I don't know how that happened. And we were using fire ships against their really good... I'm sorry, I don't remember what their ships were exactly. I looked into it. But effectively, these fire ships, they were slow and they were rickety. And it was just a suicide run against them, and we destroyed the Spanish Armada. And after that, well, that's when the British Empire rose into ascendancy. It was an incredible gambit, and it paid off.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? It does seem like they did have something mysterious on their side. Yeah, that's very
well. One way I've heard it likened to is imagine if the USA today with its F-35 strike fighters, and then suddenly you've got a bunch of Mexicans coming in with Cessna crop dusters or whatever, and they've been able to defeat the entire United States Air Force.
Yeah.
And then now, like, Mexico's the world empire. I mean, it won't happen because Mexicans aren't, well, they aren't shit, really. They're violent savages, but apart from that, they're not going to amount to much.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. It really is. But there's a whole... God, if we go down this avenue, this is going to take another show, but if there's a whole other conspiracy concerning all this... who was our leader back then? I can never remember. It's not Francis Drake,
weren't it? Because he played.
Drake.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was that was the other thing, wasn't it? It was like nonchalantly playing bowls, weren't he? And they were like, "I'll go in 5 minutes, job," weren't it?
This is what I was going to say, because apparently one of the bowls wasn't a bowl; it was like an ancient alien artifact, which was bowling ball sized, but was a sort of like how would you describe it? Some sort of oracle type thing, which answered any sort of question. And apparently that was what he was really doing. He was consulting this oracle globe rather than playing bowls. That was the cover story. But
well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I mean, you also mentioned John Dee as well. So sorry if we're sort of jumping over the place on this, but as you can see, I'm a bit discombobulated today. It's a story for another time. But I believe it was John Dee was talking about how, and this was like when the microscope was new. Microbes. He was saying that he was in contact with microbes who regard microbes, except he was able to communicate with them and say, can you help us out against the Spanish Armada, please?
Yeah, it's amazing stuff, because I mean, he was no fool. He was one of our greatest minds probably we've ever created. So, and yet, you know, he's not going to be fooled by some sort of 2-bit sort of like joker, sort of, you know, some hoaxing guy. Like, he was a very intelligent person, and here he is contacting angels and stuff and doing wife swapping and stuff, which was a huge no back then. I mean, but he went through with it because he was so dedicated to finding the truth. So he'd even risk his eternal soul to get truth. You know,
he was the what's it called, the 007.
Yeah,
he signed himself 007, which I thought was interesting.
That's what I was on about. Yeah, spooks. Like, what a strange term. Like spooks. Like spooks can refer to like human spies, but it also refers to sort of spirits and ghosts and demons. And I think that's the real meaning of the term. I think like British intelligence use like these sort of entities who can walk through walls and read and influence minds and probably deliver secret messages by telepathy or automatic writing, and pretty much.
If you want to be as pragmatic as possible about it, you can just say their ability to uncover otherwise hidden information is spooky. And then you just sort of think, yeah, but you look into it, and then it's like you've got people like John Dee literally consorting with microbes who I think Lovecraft mentioned as well, talking about cyclopean intelligences. These are sort of vast ancient creatures, which I think Lovecraft was right. They are malevolent.
I think it's just like they are what they are, sort of thing. It's like if we went down to the local rough part of town and went into the pub, the people in there aren't necessarily evil. They're just who they are, sort of thing. You know, kind of.
I suppose you're right.
It's like Mary Ellen Guiley says about the jinn. She says they're just the same as normal people. You get some good ones, some bad ones, some malicious ones.
I mean, you could say I was a bit malevolent because when I was doing microbiology, after we'd done the cultures and all the stuff, it'd all go in the autoclave to get incinerated, literally committing a holocaust every single time you'd done with a lesson.
Oh, God.
It was literally another shower. Oh, Grief asks 00, have you ever heard about Karl Monk and his maths?
I haven't actually. I can't see that. I'm reading my notes. I can't see the chat at the same time. Where's this? Karl who? Karl Monk? No, I've never heard of him. The maths guy who does the ancient stuff. Is he into all that Kabbalah stuff?
I'm gonna look up Karl Monk. Hang on, it's Monk like that. The code of Karl Monk and ancient gematria.
Is it the gematria or the gematria?
Gematria. I mean, it's all gems, isn't it?
He does RKO cryptography as well.
That sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all this political. Like we were talking about political sorcery and spooks. There was that famous. What were they? The Angels of Mons, who came to the aid of the British Expeditionary Force when they were in retreat during the Battle of Mons in 1914.
Didn't something similar happen to Custer? Didn't he disappear at the top of a mountain or something? Didn't he?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Like a fog came down and then he disappeared. Hold on a sec.
Did he survive the last stand? Did he?
Hold on a sec. Give me a sec. Keep talking. I'll see if I can find it. I've got a book with it.
Because the fascinating thing about when all these like spectral angels of Mons appeared, like shooting arrows at the German army in 1914 as we retreated, that was actually a story written by the Welsh author Arthur Machen, like one of our greatest sort of horror supernatural authors. And so he certainly faked that until he made it. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard stories about Legions of the Damned before, where you get these spectral figures come to fight, and it's like, well, they're ghosts, but then their swords are real. Yeah, they really kill people. I find things like that fascinating because in an early episode of Fortean Times, Hemi introduced me to the concept of a stone tape, where in various lands you'll just be imbued with the spirit of people that are there. And I was talking about how in Ackerman Street you can still see Roman legionaries marching at certain times. In fact, it's very foggy tonight. Tonight would have been a good time to... I've got to refrain from encouraging people in the chat to stop listening and go, no, it's all right. Just take your phone in the car, keep tuned into YouTube, but just go and drive out to an old Roman road, and it's foggy, so you might see something spooky.
Apparently, that's the most seen apparition, Roman soldiers in formations, and that.
Oh, I got the Custer thing mixed up. Apparently, you saw an omen before it started. Yeah, it said as the residents saw the command marching out of Fort Abraham Lincoln in a cloud of dust, they observed the strange omen of the fate that would befall the regiment. While they watched in wonder, almost half the regiment appeared to ride off into the sky and vanish.
That reminds me of that Norfolk regiment during World War II that supposedly went up this hill and then vanished. Yeah, but these things, I never know whether they're true or not. I should write to the army, really, and ask them if they know about it. But apparently a whole platoon or a whole division or whatever they're called, quite a lot of soldiers just completely disappeared. But as I was saying about all this stuff, and then there's that famous thing about the witches on Beachy Head, isn't it, or some forest that did that cone of power spell to sort of.
I saw a thing about it. That's the new forest coven, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently they put a thought in Hitler's mind to not invade us. But having said that, I think that story originated with Gerald Gardner. So I don't want to knock Gerald Gardner because I do think he's really interesting. But I think we have to take it with a bit of salt, I think.
I was going to say, a lot of this is, when it comes to those sort of witches, whilst I definitely do believe there was an esoteric aspect to the wars being fought, I always often feel like they were claiming credit for things which just happened to be, and then in hindsight saying, oh, well, we couldn't have told you at the time because it was top secret, but we definitely did this, and this thing. And we knew where U-boat such and such was going to be, so we managed to get it and then confiscate the Enigma machine, and then what's his name, that gay boy, Alan Turing, he managed to crack the code.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is also psychological warfare that they were using at the time when they drop those fake astrological books in Germany, didn't they? That supposedly predicted that Germany was going to lose on that,
Well, I mean, the first part, before even the first blow is struck, I mean, often battles can be won or lost based on how psyched up the warriors are beforehand. I mean, this is one of the things I noticed time and time again with, like, the Greek stories of fighting Persians and other people from Asia. It's just the fact that they're absolute cowards, and the only way they would keep fighting is because their slave masters would whip them. And it's just like, well, you either get whipped or you get stabbed. And so it would work to a point, and then they break, and they'd all run away. And it's like, well, you can't whip us all.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. I read that even, like, British intelligence, they were using, like, this black magic psychological warfare against the IRA, where they'd plant sort of, like, faked altars in the woods and sort of spread rumours that was the IRA doing black magic and that.
Oh, I could well believe that sort of stuff. And the problem is, I think all this sort of power that we've gained has come to bite us on the arse, because if you look at it, we've created a ruination of our people. And I was listening to this chap in the Traditional Britain group, and he was describing the genius of Britishness. And he was talking about the various survival strategies for groups where you've got low trust societies where they've got these harems, and he was talking about how our survival strategy was genius and it worked quite well. Problem is, we got industrialized, we don't trust each other well enough, and now we've reaped the results of our forefathers. We're now suffering. We're paying the bargain which they made with the devil, I think.
I think possibly literally the bargain they've made with the devil, yeah. Because a lot of these people, they've got that dead, shark-eyed cult look, haven't they? These Extinction Rebellion people. And even these politicians seem...
Does that mean that Queen Elizabeth and Francis Drake mortgaged our souls for the British Empire? Then is that what we're saying?
I mean, I've only just thought about it in this way right now, but actually, you know what? It sounds plausible to me. I really think they thought, yeah, it'd be worth it.
Oh yeah,
Then,
I don't think that they'd
yeah.
have no qualms about that. No, I mean, what is warfare or modern warfare is groups of men with occult type symbols stitched onto their uniforms, like stars and things, being ritually sacrificed, possibly at sort of spiritually significant sites. Maybe.
What's that alphabet agency which has got an octopus with its grip on the world? It says nothing is beyond our reach. That seems pretty much symbolic of all of it, really.
Yeah, I don't think they really care about anything. I mean, the CIA's Project MK Often that was set up in the mid '60s. I mean, that was all investigating black magic and stuff, and just crazy shit. I mean,
so is that alongside MK Ultra, MK Often?
I think MK Ultra was the '50s, weren't it? I think
was
the
it?
'50s, but MK Often was set up in 1966, originally just to test the effects of drugs on people. But when that guy, what's his name?
Manson.
No, Manson. Yeah, when Charles Manson joined the CIA, Dr. Sidley Gottlieb. That's it. When he joined it, he changed it to explore the world of black magic.
Gottlieb. That's an awfully familiar surname.
Actually, I didn't think of that. Yeah, Gottlieb. Yeah.
Well, did you listen to our episode on ecstasy, Zero?
I listened to what. I listened to the one after that.
It's like a bar mitzvah in those when you start reading about MDMA.
Oh, Mr. Shulgin or Professor Shulgin.
All of them, weren't it? Like the marriage counsellor and everybody. It was just like unbelievable, weren't it?
I quite enjoyed. He wrote 2 books, Pikau and Tikau. But the thing is, Alexander Shulgin's actually a chemist, so the science he does is proper actual science, and chemistry is one of those proper things. It's not wishy-washy social or soft science, as they call it.
Well, it isn't. Well, isn't science just another form of magic?
Yeah, but I mean, in the sense of like chemistry, it's clearly laid out. You're not talking about something like the diagnostical statistical DSM, diagnostical statistical manual, where they're just sort of saying like, oh, if someone disagrees with you, then they've got oppositional defiance disorder. That's a fucking that's straight from the Soviet playbook. Because guess what? Turns out the people who did mental health in the Soviet playbook are the ones who write in the DSM now. By the way, I'm hearing myself repeating in either your or mine. Is it because I'm still too loud?
Okay, it probably is.
I'm going to ask.
You might
chat. Am I too loud? Because I'm worried that I'm doing a mic over people.
Well,
is it loud? Maybe
that stuff about the DSM kind of reminds me of that that joke. It's that astrology is racism for women.
I just found that whole rave scene deeply suspicious. I mean, bloody hell. You got all the elements there of classical ancient mind control from the rites of Eleusis and that. And you got flashing lights, repetitive music. I mean, bloody hell.
You literally have trance music.
Yeah.
I mean, at work today, I wanted to listen to some chip tunes, which I was listening to last night and enjoying. And one of my colleagues put some trance music on, and it was... I like some trance, but this trance it was fucking awful. It had that bloody awful Hoover sound effect, which was so popular. And you know the one I'm on about?
No.
It's if you go on to I'm going to do that thing now where I'm encouraging the chat to go to other websites. If you go to
Ishka's back.
If you go to Ishka's Guide to Electronic Music, it talks about the various samples which are very famous, like the Amen break from Amen.
Was it the High C's another one, isn't it?
Yeah, and Funky Drummer by James Brown, and then there's the Hoover sound effect, which is literally a vacuum cleaner, and it's been used in it's this awful sort of sorry signy wave thing. Grief will understand what I'm on about, and he's also saying I should cut my mic by about 30%. I've done that, Grief. It was set to number 7. I've put it on 5.
What interested me about rave is that that sort of like targeted middle class people, like tourist travel agents, and sort of like it wasn't like a working class movement, was it? Or at the start, anyway. That sort of it was aimed at the more upper sort of levels of society. And how easy would it have been to put subliminals in the music and the visuals? You know, sort of like vote Tony Blair. Tony Blair is God. Tony Blair is God. You know.
Well, there's no one more susceptible to programming than the middle classes, is there?
Well, they grow up on it, don't they? That's how they get where they are, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, arse licking.
I mean, do you remember that New Labour did have their own theme music by D: Ream?
Oh God, yeah.
With things
Professor Brian Cox. Isn't the universe magic?
How is it that Professor Brian Cox, with his degree, sounds thicker than Neil deGrasse Tyson, the Black Science Man?
He's been got at, hasn't he? I think he's under control. You know,
I mean,
well, he sounds like it with that drippy voice, doesn't he?
For the fact that he was picked, Doreen was picked for the theme music for Labour, I think it says a lot, really. I mean, he's probably been part of the establishment for a long time.
I don't know. I think it's one of those kind of like one of those. I call them like retirement tunes. You get those tunes that have like a certain phrase in that, and they're kind of ubiquitous, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Like those kind of songs.
Anglosaurus Rex was saying, "What is the best British food? Is it shepherd's pie?
Full English,
or is it the full English?
Full English Sunday dinner."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's high up there, I think. Yeah,
the old Sunday roast. You can't beat a roast.
Sunday roast.
Anglosaurus Rex, he's saying, I think it's bangers and mash, and I was just talking about how about potatoes and krauts the other day, and saying about no Irish ever called me an N-word. No German ever said I was a racist. So I thought, you know what? If you get spuds and you get sauerkraut, and you put a bit of sausage with that, that's a good meal. I do like sauerkraut. Sorry, I know this isn't Land of Grab and Glory.
That's Tuesday. That's Tuesday's show, Hobbit. You're burning content.
You'll have to forgive me, but when the chat talks about food, what do you expect me to do? Not answer a food-related topic.
I've finally got Zero to stop going off on tangents. Then you come in, and I've got to wrangle you now.
Well, that was the thing. I heard Zero. I was just like, he's channeling the spirit of hobbitism. He's going on the tangents, which I can't do.
Esoteric hobbitism.
I'd say just let things happen. What's going to happen? You know, it's time to talk about food, and then it's time to talk about something else. You know.
Oh, but going back to rave music, especially as OG Snake Eyes is saying, trance beat, XLSD, techno shamanism, ritual dancing, visuals, lasers, and lights. Hundreds of people on the same vibe, pretty intense spiritual energy. I've got a few problems with rave music. I like it. I like a lot of that music. I listen to a lot of it at work. I'm very interested, or was, in jungle and drum and bass. But that was the sort of music which plumbers and painters and decorators were producing. They just like, yeah, I'm going to get an Amiga and I'm going to do this, and eventually turned to Macs. But the sort of the mainstream, like house and trance music, that was... I mean, literally Ministry of Sound. It was a different production values and different sort of agenda, and I never liked it. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it is used for mind control. Underground stuff like this was, I think, that's the problem with drum and bass. I don't think it ever got commercialized, and that's why it's always been pretty much a niche thing.
Well, it's only kind of like, was it M-Beat Incredible was like the only real like breakout jungle drum and bass song, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and then was that Shy Effects as well, and
that was M-Beat and M-Beat and General Levy, weren't it?
Oh yeah, because I was thinking Shy Effects did he did a pretty poppy drum and bass song. I didn't like it very much, but it did quite well. What was it? Shake Your Body. That's what it was called. That
I know the one. Was that Mystical?
Oh no, it was Shake Your Body. It was Shy Effects.
Oh right.
I like Shy because he did original Nutter with Congo Natty in 1993, and that was quite popular.
Well, what I find strange is that when I was growing up, in the early 80s, we used to listen to extreme power electronics by Whitehouse and industrial music by Throb and Gristle and that, which was like quite heavy stuff at the time. But now I'm walking along the road and I hear sort of like librarians and that listen to stuff that's much more extreme, this sort of like weird jungle type hybrid shit. You know, that's weirder than the extreme stuff that we were listening to in the 80s, but we were all weirdos into it. But now sort of normal sort of librarians and stuff are listening to stuff that's far crazy.
I think the raves put it in the hands of the mainstream, didn't they? Because so many people were going to raves and they were like buying the tapes and like playing them at work and in their vans and stuff, weren't they?
You know, it's a strange thing, and I think maybe like it's like taste where you get sick of certain things. These days, all I find I'm really listening to is either synthwave, chip tunes, or classical music. I don't even really like guitar music. I play guitar, but I'd rather have an accordion, if that makes sense.
I do quite like a chiptune cover. I do like chiptune cover versions.
I was listening to a chiptune cover of something the other. Oh, that was it. It was the Boards of Canada song. See You Later, and I just thought, oh, actually, you know what? This really works. If this was in like a Nintendo game, or
there's
something,
a really. I've got a really good one. It's Pictures of Matchstick Men by Status Quo. That's a really good one.
Yeah, yeah.
A rave version of it. A rave version of.
Yeah, an 8-bit version of that. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry, I dropped in.
Anglo Celticus said Pendulum went pretty far, then morphed into a shit metal band. Yeah, I do still have the Guns at Dawn EP by them because I liked the art and which has got a pretty good.
Because that's like everything post Slam, isn't it? Everything after Slam was when they started going mainstream, wasn't it? Because that was their breakout tune, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. Slam was pretty good, but then after that they just sort of went like, I mean, they got popular, but just normies are. I always find normies and normie stuff repellent. Someone's trying to tell me the boomer meme has become boomer meme has become normie tier now, and PewDiePie. Well, when PewDiePie reviews a meme, that's when it's on its way out. So I guess, yeah.
So are we going to get back to where were we? Were we at Sir Francis Drake before we
Political Sorcery Part 2?
Yeah. Were we at Sir Francis Drake, or do we need to move on from there?
I'm very glad we had the aside about trance music and stuff, because all of this will tie back into Political Sorcery.
We'll loop back round to it.
Well, no, I mean, the thing is, it is part of the context. I mean, it's we were talking about psychological warfare, and you know, I think if you showed John Dee the Ministry of Sound, he'd be like, "Yeah, this looks like something I'd come up with."
Well, that's what Marty McFuture, doesn't he? He puts that Van Halen on, doesn't he, to torture George, doesn't he?
You can't
Have I lost everybody with that reference? Oh, did I? Sorry, no. I was just talking about when Marty McFly tortures George in Back to the Future.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he playing some Eddie Van Halen, but the stream's going a bit shit as well. So is it your has your internet ration run out?
It must be. It must be.
You're going to have to write to Her Majesty's government and say, "Please, may I have another crumb of internet?"
Well, I'm moving soon, so hopefully the internet will improve.
Or don't dox yourself.
Yeah, don't dox yourself.
You mean moving?
There's a house for sale. There's a house for sale in the United Kingdom. Doxed.
There we go. It's narrowed it down. If you buy a house in the UK and meet the owners, you'll meet Hemi in IRL. How many houses are for sale in the UK right now?
A couple of 100,000, I should think.
Oh dear! You've pretty much narrowed it down to 100,000.
Shocking odds.
Your face is going to be plastered on the Daily Mirror next day. It's like,
I hope my H spies are going to get me.
Internet racist is trying to sell his house.
Shocker.
I think we should have a mass self-doxing. I think we should all dox ourselves and like to hell with it, you know, like well, you
know. I will do that.
I mean,
when I'm self-employed and I'm like well established as like a master craftsman or something.
Yeah,
it's just like, well, he is an internet racist, but I really do like the doorknobs he makes.
Yeah, and I'm too idealist sometimes. Yeah.
I wish we could live in your. Well, I say we could live in your sort of world, but I've seen paranoid schizophrenics and stuff, and it ain't an easy world to live in.
That's a backhanded compliment, I bet.
I'm not saying you are, by the way, seriously, but you're familiar with these people, aren't you? I mean,
I know the structures of it all. Yeah,
you and I have got a passing familiarity of people with mental health issues, and they're interesting people, but you wouldn't want to hang out with them too long.
Oh yeah, that's weird stuff. Yeah.
I am probably the most insensitive, mentally handicapped person I know.
Don't encourage them because they'll make you as crazy as they are. You know, if you encourage them.
That's the thing. I mean, someone sort of quite similar to me flew off the handle one of these days, and I was visiting him in one of those. I won't say which hospital it was, but there's a couple of secure units in the UK, and I went to visit him there, and he says, "You know what the difference between you and me, Hobbit, is?" And I said, "What's that?" "I'm visiting you." He says, "No, you're just as crazy as I am, but you pretend you're normal." And I said, "Yeah, because I don't want to end up where you are. It's not a fun place to be." And it's like, I think he enjoyed like taking all the filters off, but he enjoyed like. I enjoy moderation. He enjoys going to the extremes, and I lost contact with him. Last I heard, he claimed he was a girl and he's got a Mexican name. So yeah, but that's an aside. That's not really got anything to do with political science.
Yeah, but that's where they capture all the sort of shamanic type people, isn't it? They incarcerate them in these psychiatric wards and study them and rip off their secrets there, don't they? I mean,
do you think, I don't know if they're built on ley lines or not, but do you think these mental asylums, they're like some sort of harvesting device for psychic energy?
I think so, yeah. Because if you notice, like a lot of the psychiatric drugs have very similar names to the medieval demons of the grimoires. Like,
oh really?
I conjure the cyclomazepine. I conjure the Ativan. They sound like fucking medieval demons to me.
You know what? I think that you're onto something there. There probably is something to do with that. And all I understand with these psychiatric drugs is they're just there to numb people's. They're there to numb people's abilities to make them a bit more brain dead, so they're more malleable.
Don't they also inhibit your ability to like fight demons as well?
Probably, yeah. And it makes you really fat as well on purpose. I think they've put that little bit of chemical structure in there to make you fat, because when you take them, you just bloat out, and that sort of X's you out of society, doesn't it? Which is what they want, because people don't take fat people seriously, do they?
Well, I mean, in places like Japan, fat people get passed up for promotion for less qualified skinny people, because the idea is like, well, if you're fat, then you can't moderate yourself, and you lack discipline. So if you're a fatty bums, then there still is a stigma about that. I mean, I was talking to my cousin about it because I'm a fatty, and I said to him, he says, why are you worried about all this losing weight and stuff? And I said, well, mostly I want to get rid of the fat. I don't mind about losing weight, because I seem like in the scales like a bunch of muscle and then a bunch of fat, and it's incredible how much denser the muscle is. And so I said, I don't mind if I was to weigh the same weight for the rest of my life, but it's all muscle. I just want less fat pushing around my brain so I can think sharper. And he says, yeah, but that's going to make you meaner. And I said, yeah, and I do admit I'm losing my compassion. I don't have the same sympathy for my fellow man what I once used to.
It's hard losing weight when you're middle aged. Though I mean, I'm sort of slightly overweight, but I can't get rid of it. I think it's some metabolism thing that once you hit middle age, it's really hard to get rid of it. I mean, I hardly eat anything, but I'm not getting thinner. No. So I might have like worms or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah. But getting on to this point about the psychiatric drugs making people fatten out, didn't work with my mate. He was always like a beanpole. But I think it's a case of once they get these people docile, they just kind of like it's like I mean, it's like the expression fat and docile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Land wild sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that seems to be the way they deal with these people, that because we don't have an avenue for shamans. We don't have like, where we just be like, that's the house, and there's the mental guy who lives there, and you go and see him, and you have a disturbing dream, and you interpret it for you.
Yeah, it's a big shame, that is. Yeah, you're only allowed to be a Christian monk, aren't you? That's pretty much it, unless you want to be a Hare Krishna or something a bit more sort of stranger. Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't be weird these days.
No, that's the problem. I mean, the monks, if anything, they're kind of like an opposite of the weirdo. I mean, I call shamans weirdos. They are weirdos. I mean, I don't think there's any stigma in saying it. Yeah, they are
total nutcases. Yeah,
they're touched by the moon, and with monks, they're kind of just cloistered away from society, and they probably are strange in that they got this thing, but they're very sort of simple lives, and it's not the same as shamanism. And but did you guys have any prep before you did this show? Because I thought, oh yeah, I'll come into this and I'll listen and I'll see if I can offer any insights and valuable advice. And to be fair, it's more been a case of I've been away for a while. And
you haven't spoken on a stream for a while. You're just getting it all out, aren't you, Hobbit?
I appreciate it. It's all interesting, It's all interesting,
It's therapy for me. I was in the pub prior to this, and I was talking to a chap about cars, and I just thought, you know what, I could be doing this with my friends online, but you guys aren't going to be talking about cars. You're going to be talking about the interesting things that John Dee and Francis Drake did, what means we had an empire.
If anyone's interested in all that Francis Drake stuff, they should look up the Sphere material. It's SVERRE. He's a Swedish guy who claims to have first-hand knowledge of all this. And it's weird stuff. David Bowie was involved. Stephen Ward of the Profumo scandal.
Was he formerly a vegan and now he eats raw meat?
I'm not sure.
Spherage?
No, he was just called Sphere, like SVERRE. Just claims to be like an insider of all this stuff, kind of.
Oh, okay, yeah, because there's Ankylosaurus Rex is saying, I live in a shared house, they don't like racists, and it's one of those things. It's sort of difficult. I can't really explain to my family, like, yeah, my hobbies include internet racism.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, they always encourage me to get a hobby. And it's cheaper than getting N-gauge railways. My God, have you seen the cost of an N-gauge railway locomotive? I have.
Yeah, I know. I was vaguely interested in that stuff, yeah. Models.
I thought Warhammer miniatures were expensive, but my God, I mean, okay, N-gauge railways, you need jewelers' levels of skills to do it, but £138 for a locomotive.
Blimey, Charlie.
I mean, it's a motorised box on wheels, and it's got some very intricate gearing on it, but 138 quid? No. This is I mean, actually, this is more important as well, because I'm really glad we're in the stage now. I'm guessing, especially you, 00, used to listen to David Icke. And
oh yeah,
Did you used to listen to the People's Voice?
I did. The short time it was up, yeah.
Yeah, well, you might have heard me a long time ago.
Oh, he's supposedly come up. He said he's coming up with a new project, isn't he? A new TV or internet type project, isn't he?
Good. Well, I hope he's learnt his lessons from the people's voice and he can make a better go of it, because the time's ripe now. I mean, before people were saying, what's the point in this? Why not just record some stuff and put it on YouTube? But YouTube is becoming increasingly unviable as a platform, and I'm glad we can still use it. But in the future, I'll be looking forward to whatever the new platform is. But the reason I mentioned about the people's voice is he was talking then, and Alex Jones, about being the tip of the spear and saying that many new people come up. And I'm glad we've now got to that stage now where people like myself and you, Hemi, we're here. And this means we get to hear people like Zero Zero, because I've really been interested in what you've been saying. And I've been leaving little comments here and there in the Telegram chat. But I just, I'm glad I'm here today doing it live.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sort of toot my own horn, but I have been sort of investigating this stuff for over 30 years, kind of like, so I sort of do know what I'm talking about.
So is this the first time you've had an outlet for it then?
I've usually just like I've never been on air before and talked about it. I'm more of a writer than a speaker, but I'm getting into speaking about it now. So. Because before, everything was very secret for sort of obvious reasons. But I think it's changed now. Now people are more public about it, because the powers that be are now revealing what they're doing, aren't they? So I think we should as well just be open about it. Fuck all these secrets and hiding away, and I think just say what you're into,
The problem about that is, I say we're like in late stage Soviet Empire, where you got to practice samizdat and just understand that what you're doing has to be clandestine for your own safety. But the thing is, I feel like very soon we'll enter into. Oh, sorry, audience, my chair is very creaky.
Your chair would have been better last week when we were reading the ghost stories of it.
I had difficulty listening to that episode. It was fascinating, but it was hard going, and I really wish I was there, because I was just like, oh God, I wish I could have been saying this stuff. And I want to say, like, about psychic blunts and psychic like people who just stop psychic phenomena going around them, because there are people who are sensitive to psychic phenomena, and I'd say there's probably the opposites. And I'd say there's probably even people that just like they're a void, and psychic stuff just can't happen around them because they've got like some sort of like they almost ground the energy out.
Yeah, I think that's me. I think I'm one of those people.
Well,
I think in most senses I'm like a true believer in the paranormal, because I've never had a single experience, or knowingly had a single experience.
At least you're not a skeptical, because I mean you're open to it and you've got the curiosity. But there's a lot of people that they're skeptical, and I think their skepsis, the skepses are because of the way they are. I mean, Rudyard Kipling, he summed it up perfectly. He said, "Magic doesn't exist for those who don't believe in it." I think that is a very
that's very true. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, what's your take on that, Zero?
I find it very strange that all this sort of skeptic versus believer, it's always one way, isn't it? It's like it's acceptable to take the piss out of the weirdo who's into the occult, but it never seems like acceptable to take the piss out of the skeptic and point the finger at them.
Chris, I think I've said this before, and I don't know if I've said it on a stream, but I was watching that haunted. Do you remember that Haunted Homes? And he was the pet skeptic, and he went into this one bedroom. He sat down, and his ass didn't even touch the floor before he'd got up and said he hadn't seen anything. He said, "No, there's nothing going on in here." I mean, why would he get up so quickly if there was nothing going on in there? It's just like he's such a bullshitter.
I'm sorry. In the chat, he's saying that fucking chair though sounds like a 230-watt Nikita Hammond action brushes drill full reps. It's just like, that's very specific.
Yeah, that is very specific.
do you have a lot of experience using Makita power tools, Grief?
Yeah. I think he's getting a sponsorship. Isn't his channel sponsored by Makita now?
Hey, watch out! I've got a contract with Ryobi Power Tools. Oh, can we get a Power Tool sponsorship?
It's got to be Bosch though. I'm a Bosch man hobbit. Sorry, mate.
Bish bash bosh.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a live.
Bosch Blue, best kit you can get, mate.
I'd love to do a live read for like various sort of things, or I did one for.
Do you want me to speak to the mattress people? They'll sponsor anybody, won't they?
Really?
Yeah, there's those.
Who's that? I need.
What is it? The mattress. Was it Casper mattresses?
Hey, that could work if we're doing a spooky ghost.
Oh yeah, show. Mate, I'll give him a bell then. I'll get him on the blower.
We're talking hello, yeah, Casper. Yeah, we're talking about demons and John Dee creating the British Empire. Can we have a few free mattresses? I don't know. I'm sure that go down well.
I mean, I'm all right for mattresses, but I'm just thinking I could do with a hammer drill and what else could I'll tell you what, I quite like a bench grinder. So you see, I'm more interested. I've got a belt sander as well, but I'd like a bigger one. So yeah,
I'd love a lathe. God, if I could get a lathe.
Graves insisting that whatever you buy, it's got to be brushless. I bet. Are we going to talk about brushless drills while we're here? Are we?
I'm sorry, my levels of autism don't go into the ins and outs of motors. I'm interested in bearings, but not so much motors. There's pros and cons for brushless.
Do you know what I'm interested in? Political sorcery.
Yeah.
Hey, Henry, can you tell us a bit about political sorcery?
Was that subtle enough for you, Hobbit?
I so sure appreciate it. God, tell us a bit about it. What's your take on John Dee?
Where were we before he was so rudely interrupted?
I quite enjoyed all that. No, it's just we could do a part 3. It's just that God, I've got a shitload of stuff.
Well, I'll get flack from Natsock again. He'll say you've blueballed me again.
All right, let's do it then. But let's just where's my I'll see how much we got to go here. But it's not that much. No, that'll be a good ending. Yeah, it's not that much, but it's just once I start talking about something, I get like 10 other things coming to my head that I try to sort of get into.
Feeling.
Yeah,
I do know that feeling. I think there's a way I could probably tie this into current affairs political science, because there's been a lot of chicanery and black magic going around with not just the Brexit Party, but UKIP, and that might be something more for Brutus's show. But I really am quite disappointed what's happened with UKIP. The NEC seems to have completely sabotaged that party.
I think they were always designed to be flat pack, though, weren't they? I think that's the way the party was designed.
What?
That, once the BNP had been destroyed and someone else takes over, I think it was kind of designed. That's just my theory, anyway. That it was kind of designed to be folded up when it was no longer in use.
I get a feeling that not only does Nigel Farage want UKIP to be destroyed for the same reasons that BNP are destroyed, to have like a controlled opposition, but he survived numerous assassination attempts. So I think now he's part of the system.
Absolutely,
they've bullied him enough, and it's really fucking sad.
It's whatever happened when the Brexit result came through, wasn't it? That was when he got his payment or his invitation to the gang.
Yeah, that's it. Because he managed to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Yeah,
which I do find incredible, and I respect him for that. But I despise him for that as well.
Well, he said all that stuff. If Brexit's ever in danger, I'll come back. He did like the King Arthur thing, didn't he? But never came back when it was getting fucked over by Theresa May. That was my reading of it.
Of all the people in the Brexit Party, I think I respect Anne Widdecombe the most, and I kind of like it when she says, "I choose to be celibate," and it's like, yes, you choose to be celibate to cultivate your magical essence, and you don't choose to be celibate because it's the choice of everyone else around you.
Have you noticed that Nigel Farage looks like a Muppet? Like he looks like an actual Muppet sort of puppet? Someone else said that. He does, doesn't he?
Well, could you imagine his spitting image puppet? You could imagine it quite easily, couldn't you?
It's quite easy to caricature Nigel Farage's face, especially as he's really quite good with smug expressions.
It's just, it all seems very scripted, doesn't it? That whole UKIP BNP thing. It's just like,
yeah. Well, if you want more information about that, you can listen to Brutus's show. He talks about the history of how UKIP was designed in a way to be a counter to BNP, like to sort of channel the energy for freedom into something that's like a bit less racist in it. The chat's just talking about power tools and what's the worst sort of injury from lathes or routers. And I can say you don't want to get injured with either of them, and you certainly don't want to leave the chuck key in the drill or a lathe.
Yeah, just remember your health and safety, lads. That's all you got to
do. Yeah. I mean, that's why I was saying, hey, you got to sort of like make the Russians talk about a type of house spirit, where if you don't keep your house in order, it becomes malevolent.
Well, we were talking about that during the fairy episode. Have you ever heard of Brownie's Hobbit?
Oh, the brownies are a house spirit.
Yeah.
The reason I mention that is like you want to keep the spirits in your workplace happy, because otherwise, like, you will get workplace injuries. And I'm looking at this stuff with the injuries, and I had almost a premonition today that something bad's going to happen to me. I'll be specific about what that bad thing was after the air. And then, lo and behold, that bad thing happened to me. And I was like, I saw it coming, and yet I didn't take any steps to prevent it.
Do you think it could be the other way around, that you kind of memed it into being? Do you think you could have memed your own destruction Hobbit?
I was very, very wound up at work. Well, I'm just wound up in general. And one of the things the highway code says is, don't go driving when you're angry. You'll become irrational and aggressive. And it's like that. I was a bit silly. Nothing dangerous happened, so people don't start like going, oh, I'm going to dox him just to see what roadside incidents happened. No, nothing dangerous happened, but it was one of those things.
So where were we?
Talking about brownies and how that pertains to political science, and how NEC did some black magic which ruined things.
I don't think it was black magic. I think they were just like designed to. They were the safety bar, weren't they?
Black magic. They were casting dark rituals, harvesting Gelfling energy to ruin Brexit.
It's just that what I'm interested.
Speaking of, actually, you reminded me, Hobbit. Brexit's a magical word, isn't it? Because we voted to leave the European Union. So what happened was the left then turned it into Brexit, didn't they?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that point, because I said I really despise the term, and I use it because everyone else uses it.
I've despised it for a long time, Brexit.
Well, yeah, because I'm saying, well, why don't we just call it the independence referendum, or just
why don't you call it leaving the European Union? Because you can either leave the European Union or stay in the European Union. You can't sort of leave the European Union, but you can Brexit, and Brexit is it's we think it means one thing, whereas they know it means another, don't they?
I mean, that's the horrible thing with neurolinguistic programming. You've got certain trigger words like racist, conspiracy theorist, Brexit, and then these terms will have all these energies with them, and they are magic spells. Neurolinguistic programming is magic. There's no and ifs or buts about it.
But it's created by awful people like that Richard Bandler, just like an awful like whore. He'd whore himself out to whatever company would pay him. Just awful.
So who's he then? I don't know who he is.
He created NLP, didn't he? With that other guy, I can't remember his name, but just like awful sort of like mercenaries. Really, they'd hire themselves out to any old company. Like whatever race was behind it, sort of thing. And just awful, vulgar capitalist sort of like sorcerer, I suppose you call it.
So do you think, as most people do, that neurolinguistic blimey, I can't even say the word. Programming is magic.
Well, it's hypnotism, isn't it? It's hypnotism, like ambush hypnotism. Because Richard Bandler would demonstrate it in his lectures. He'd pick some sort of person of the audience and ambush hypnosis him, or sort of like instantly hypnotise him.
But
to sort of demonstrate it.
I mean, that's a term which I've now I'm familiar with, is ambush hypnosis, and that I find very interesting. And I mean, the simplest way of putting it about, and I have to break things down into simple things because I'm very brain when it comes to some of this stuff, is you got spells, right? And spells are comprised of spell-ings, and words are comprised of spell-ings. And neurolinguistic programming is using words to program yourself in doing certain things. In other words, to alter reality using words and incantations. Well, fuck me, that's magic. I mean, I don't know how else to describe magic, because you use words and incantations, and you affect reality around you.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what's political correctness if it's not magic, is it? It's changing the way people speak, think, and act, isn't it? So
I think Twitter's like that, because I quite enjoy the fun I have on Twitter, and I just have to understand that when I'm using it, I'm talking in a code, which effectively is a magic spell. I'm not allowed to speak truthfully, because if I did, I'd just get banned for a hate speech.
Hate speech. I mean, that's another NLP term, isn't it? Like hate speech. Like it's like,
I mean,
it doesn't even have a definition in law, does it? It's so nebulous that it doesn't even have a definition in law. That's how crap it is, isn't it?
It is yet another loaded term where you just accuse somebody of that. Your intentions behind what you said is hate, and then I mean, it's not the same as if we just say it's banter. It's like, it's a bit banter. It's like, oh, the stuff you said to me. Yeah, mate, it's banter. That's, so what? Oh, but that hurts my feelings. All right, jog on. But
that's like hate speech is like termed as a sort of like, it's a more evil form of normal speech, isn't it? Whereas using the same words, but it's somehow sort of like more evil, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like terrible, like.
They're basically saying you can't say certain things because that's hateful. And even if you say something fairly innocuous and quite funny, like, oh, it's terrible how this religious group is persecuted. If only they had their own country, which they could go to so they could escape all this virulent hatred for them for no good reason whatsoever. And, it's like, it's funny jokes. It's just, it's funny words. But then someone says, there's a hate speech. And it's like, well, mate, you're assuming I'm being hateful, whereas all I'm doing is just having a bit of a laugh. But that, again, it's one of those things. It's why I don't like using terms like Brexit. I don't like political correctness. I don't like racism. I don't like hate speech, because they're all neurolinguistic programming. And the thing is, because they're all in English, which for the past 500 years has been I mean, that we could do even a show about that, how the English language is a magical construct, because it's quite different to its ancestry. It is so effective because it's so subtle, because people don't think twice about using these terms. Why are we using terms like Brexit? Why do we say that's politically incorrect?
Oh, yeah, they study all this stuff for sure. I mean, even that nudge unit, that's just the public face of all this stuff. The government's nudge unit, the Labour created it. He's basically using NLP on the whole populace. I mean, that goes much deeper than that, I think, yeah.
Wait a minute, did you say that a nudge unit?
They're called the nudge unit, aren't they? That you can find PDFs of them on the government website, .government.co website. Yeah,
I've
they're
heard
like
of
a
it
think
before.
tank.
I don't remember what it
Yeah.
is though. I have heard of it though. It does.
They're like
ring
a think tank that influences public opinion through NLP, basically.
Right, because in which case I was going to say, is a nudge unit another way of saying shifting the Overton window, which is what our Yankee friends like to say.
Yeah, it's all that Tony Blair sort of stuff. Like, instead of sort of ordering people what to do, you sort of subtly nudge them to sort of do what you want them to do instead. Kind of, yeah.
I mean,
instead of asking them to do it, you con them into it.
Yeah, you sort of,
Typical Tony
basically,
Blair,
yeah.
fucking used
Mind
car
control.
salesman, isn't he?
God.
He's a Jew, you know. His mum's a Jew. He's a Jew. I think
if he's not, he's spiritually a 4B2, isn't he?
It's definitely, well, I looked into the early history, early life.
Yeah.
That's a problematic section on Wikipedia, which they're going to have to mass delete in the future, because looking at early life is a hate speech. And but no, nudge unit is a term which, now you mention it, it's so fucking insidious. I mean, that's the thing about our language in itself. And I think this is political sorcery, because the fact is, 500 years ago, there was efforts made, very successful, to standardize English, to do the Oxbridge standardization. That's why all our spoutings are based upon how the intelligentsia from those two universities would spell them. And we have a language which isn't really like any other language. I mean, you can see some similarities to Dutch and German, but it's not really, not at all. And I think this is one of those things. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get like a philologist on, or an etymologist, to actually talk about like the structure of language and the origin of these words? Because then we could say, well, yes, because you have this structure and you don't have these bits which other languages do, that's why the English think in a certain way.
Well, do you think maybe the mechanical diggers destroying our language is kind of is adding to the rot? Do you know what I mean? The way they say asks and things like that. It's like is that chipping away at the fabric of the country at the same time? Because you're chipping away at the fabric of the language, you're chipping away at the fabric of the country.
Well, I could give you an example of that. There's an American podcaster called The Hate Bus, which is, as they describe themselves, the alt-right's most retarded podcast. And one of their sections they've got, it's well worth a listen, guys. So I know we're all we're Anglo-centric, because, as Cecil Rhodes say, if you have had the good fortune of being born an Englishman, you have won the lottery of life. Well, they're still you know, our backwards cousins in the colonies, and they have a section where they talk about the mechanical diggers and the various news and shenanigans they get up to. And so many of their reports, they have one of mechanical diggers say, well, what had happened was, what had happened. You can say what happened. What had happened is entirely redundant. Because what happened is, I mean, that's the thing. They don't understand past and present and future tense. So that's why what had happened. Give us free.
I can't stand that gangster speak. It's just like awful. Oh God.
The patois. No, I don't like it either. I wonder if there was something similar with the fall of the Roman Empire, when they had the various auxiliaries.
Well, there was like a bastardized pigeon Roman or something like that.
Well, I was going to say, I think they even called it. Actually, no, not Pig Latin, because that's something else. But
that's when you switch to the first letter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just Pigeon Latin. But that said, I was quite surprised about this. A Roman historian told me that even during the height of the Roman Empire, the vehicular language of the classical world was Greek, not Latin. The higher ups would speak Latin, but everyone would understand how to speak Greeks, because the Greeks would teach their kids. The Greeks were still the center of culture and learning, which I find interesting because there was a lot of Romans sent their kids to England. Not that it was called England back then, to study with the Celts. So, what language were they speaking?
That's one of my things about the Druids and that. And the accepted thing is that the Druids didn't write anything down. But how do we know that? Maybe that's just what we're being told. Like maybe there is some sort of ancient Druid grimoire where they did write all their secrets down. That's what I suspect.
I believe a lot of the Druid and English folklore got incorporated into the Bible.
I'm a strong believer that the reason we've turned out the way we have is that we managed to fold our religion into Christianity, and that's why we're so different from like the desert dwellers, aren't we?
Yeah, because I mean they say Judeo-Christian, and I think the Stone Toss comic perfectly encapsulates Judeo-Christian. We're not anything like them, and it is reflected in our religion and our culture, which are all of that is descendants from race.
Well, it's even that phrase in itself. If you look at the etymology of it, it's Judeo parasited onto Christianity, which is exactly what it is, isn't it?
Have you seen the Stone Toss comic with that?
I haven't seen that one. No, I've seen. I like Stone Toss, but I haven't seen that one.
It's 2 panels, and the first panel is a guy with a hammer hammering a spike into Jesus's wrist, and then on the other hand, it's like the guy on the cross.
And with Druids was around, and then the Christians came in. But something like as powerful as Druidism, it's not just going to disappear, is it? I mean, it's going to carry on underground, isn't it? It's going to.
Winston Churchill was a Druid, and that disgusts me because I like Druids, and it makes me shudder to think he was a Druid.
Yeah.
That bloke Gardner you spoke about, I believe he was a Druid as well. I don't think he ever came out as one, but I suspect he was.
Is Gardner the what's it called? The New Forest Coven, is he?
Yeah, the witchcraft guy.
Yeah, he consulted with the Book of the Great Beast, didn't he? Crowley.
Crowley, yeah. Crowley wrote a lot of the rituals for the original Wicca. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they don't like to talk about, but yeah. That's interesting stuff.
They don't actually know what the original rituals were, do they? Because Gardner fucked it all up, didn't he?
I think he sort of. I hate to say it, but he did make it up. But then again, what does making it up mean? Maybe he was channeling the ancestors, as far as we know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked into the Celts a lot, but I mean, they must have had religious practices akin to sort of like witchcraft type stuff, I would imagine. Sort of.
Oh, Hollywood makes out they're all cannibals, don't they?
Yeah. But what interests me is prehistoric witchcraft. I mean, what must have gone on then, way back in the times where there was probably no kind of like barriers to consciousness between this world and other dimensions. I mean, who knows? Who knows what was going on back then? You got those cave paintings with those sort of mysterious men with like glowing helmets and stuff. And yeah, I love all that. If I had a time machine,
magic.
Yeah.
I mean, I realise this in itself. It's one thing to like my first exposure to classical art probably was shows on the BBC with that nun just going around and seeing like paintings on the television doesn't do it justice.
Don't you count Tony Hart then?
Oh yeah, I like Tony Hart. I loved Heartbeat. That was great. It was really nice seeing like. Especially like really talented. I
mean, could you imagine sitting a kid down today and getting them to watch Heartbeat? They'd be doing their nut. What's this? Is boring.
Yeah, it's it's a different era, very much. But the point is seeing like paintings up close, like actual proper paintings. I went to the last time I was in Oxford. I went to the Ashmolean with Brutus. And I just said, look, there's an amateur demo, and he wasn't too interested in it. He realised it was good, but he was looking at some of the other stuff, and I had a good long look at that painting because I hadn't seen it before, and no, I had, but I just never noticed the details in it before. It was
Neck and Croak's in Hobbit. Is he the one you were saying about you wanted to get him on the show?
Oh no, it's my other mate. He's a
Okay.
mate of both Neck and Croak and myself. The one I shall refer to as N.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean.
As Neck and Croak's here in the thing, I just want to say a tangent. This is nothing to do with political science. Coal scuttles, coal hods, they are really inexpensive. I've seen them on Amazon for about £13, so I got myself a bucket. There was like somebody I said, oh, could you like weld a new patch onto this bucket? And he says, oh, I'm not sure. It's really thin steel. It's going to probably melt. I'll have to use a TIG welder. But I'm cold, so I needed a bucket, so I bought myself a bucket. So if you're listening, mate, don't worry yourself about it. Just chuck it in the bin. I've got myself a new bucket. So back to political science.
So where were we? So we've done to Francis Drake. Is there anything in between there and modern day that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about paintings. 00 is talking about cave paintings. They're the original magic. Well, I say they're the original magic. They're the original magic that we can see because there's recording of it. Those paintings were like to visualize a successful hunt. And we know they're successful because they did paintings and they carried on. And otherwise, they would have just been ruins. Sorry. But the point being is painting is a form of magic. Aphex Twin mentions this with music. He says what he does is magic. He can reach out to people that he'll never see and never otherwise meet, but because he's made a piece of music that is evocative, he can cause an emotional response in somebody. That is a form of magic. So yeah, I've said my piece. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I wanted to go on the chat and talk about power tools.
Oh, but you're so subversive. I really do think that you are one of the one of the tribe.
You've seen what my nose is like. Oh, Distant Thought says you guys should look into Mark Devlin's work on the music industry.
That was the name I was trying to think of earlier. I was going to mention. I was going to mention it, but I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah, he lives in Bicester, and he used to be on Fox FM. So I used to listen to him. And the problem is he likes his woke hip hop, and I can't listen to any of that ooga booga jungle drumming anymore. I can't stand.
Oh,
it.
I was listening to. Do any of you guys listen to the Higher Side chats? Greg
THC.
Cole. Yeah. Latest one's about pedo. I had to listen to that. That was really interesting.
I used to listen to Freeman's show, and Higher Side Chat's got mentioned on that and Red Ice Radio, but I stopped listening to Freeman because I just got annoyed with his boomer hippie takes. And Red Ice Radio, I think ever since Lana got onto it, I just something about it I just disliked. I wish them all the best because their show's really good, and Henrik is an absolute quality guy, but just I can't get into it.
Don't you find it weird how so many conspiracy theorists have gone into politics now? Like,
I suppose they see where the money's going.
Yeah, I mean that must be it because that's what Jonesy's done. He's done a full turn into he's like almost a regular political show now, isn't he? Just saying slightly different things, isn't he?
I mean, to be fair, he always from day one he was saying that he only talks about stuff where he's got the documents for it, and he'd ruffle his papers to say here's the documents. Yeah. And he would sort of talk about things he's seen, but can't be verified, like the really weird experiments they were doing trying to find the perfect flicker rate for televisions to cause hypnosis and trance-like states. So you know about like how televisions put people into alpha brainwaves, which is like even it's like when you're in deep sleep, you're in alpha brainwave state, very sort of low functioning state.
So was the CRT not that effective then? That's why the CRT had to go.
Well, I think the reason no, because you can still make CRTs and LCDs flicker in certain patterns. Otherwise, it wouldn't be useful as and in fact, if anything, you could say a CRT is superior because of its color rendition is superb and the contrast is great. I really like CRTs. They're just bulky as all hell.
Yeah.
I did see this technology. I think Toshiba were going to work on like because the wider you make a CRT display, the deeper it has to be. So the idea was you have a lot of these like 10 centimeter square displays, and you make a matrix of them, but they could never get the bezels small enough. And I think that was around about the same time LCDs they kind of perfected the technology and got it really good. But have you seen these modern televisions? Like if you go to Curry's or some other electronic store, and they got all these tellies on display showing all these demo reels. You know the ones I'm on about? They'll show like really bright nature scenes with parrots and a drop of water landing on the leaf and things like that. Yeah, I know what you mean. And they'll advertise like, oh, this television's got 120 hertz and it upscales things. So it's got like a computer and it interpolates the scene. So if you're watching something that's like 24 or 30 frames a second, it will use the computer to put in more animation so it's smoother than real life. It's very, very hypnotic. My mum's got a telly like that, which does the interpolation. And I must admit, when I watch it, I get mesmerized by the thing. It's just like, oh, that looks really good. Even watching adverts is good.
They do stuff like, they do stuff like that in porn films, apparently, where they intercut blank white screens every so often, and that's supposed to like stimulate / hypnotize people, like in American porn especially, like blank white screens, like subliminals. They just flash them up, you know, just to sort of.
Porn has driven most of our like televisual technology, hasn't it? The DVD was about to die, wasn't it, until the porn industry picked it up.
Oh,
and then people realised that you could pause it and get better images than you could with a VHS.
Close-ups.
I wouldn't be surprised if HD was the same sort of thing, that people got it to watch better porn.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Jones was on about. He says, look, I haven't got documents for this, but I know what I've seen. I've been into the University of Austin, Texas, where they got these monkeys and they just hook them up to all these television displays and they observe what the effects of televisions are on these monkeys and turn them into drooling retards, in other words. Here's the thing about pornography, which I find really insidious about it, apart from the fact that it's like it's just bad for your soul in general. So, have you ever watched a porn before?
Not me.
I think everybody has. I don't think you need to ask that question.
I'll take one for the team and so I've watched a porn. And there's a thing I've noticed in it where they like in any other story, you've got your beginning and middle and an end, and there's a climax. And then just before the climax, they'll do like a close up of the bloke's face, so he's gurning, or do a close up of his willy, so you see his willy. And I think what that does there is, if you're doing like a normal sex, you'd be looking at your woman, you'd be feeling her, and you'd be closing your eyes and enjoying the feelings. And you wouldn't be thinking about a bloke gurning his face or looking at his willy. And I think this probably has put a lot of gay imagery into otherwise heterosexual minds and has probably made people gay.
Yeah, it's done deliberately. Celtic Rebel spoke about that. Yeah, it's done deliberately. So, like, it's timed exactly as, speaking theoretically, like the male masturbating to a porn, just as he's about to come, like the viewer's about to come, they cut to the male face, like in ecstasy, gurning, as if to sort of subliminally implant an association between orgasm and male sexuality, basically to turn people gay. You know,
I mean, I remember the first times I watched when I was 14, and I was in Germany at the time. They just got hardcore pornography on the televisions, And then it sort of struck me years later when apparently Israel was invading Lebanon or Palestine. They took over the television station and they were just putting hardcore pornography on it all the time, which made the people less likely to fight and rebel. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So hardcore pornography is there on German television all this time.
They did it in the Soviet Union as well in the 80s. And my friend went over there in the 80s and he said that, you know, like sort of normal newsagent type shops, there was like hardcore pornography on sale, like really hardcore stuff, like in the Soviet Union in the 80s. So the same sort of thing was going on there, I think. Yeah.
Well, the thing which strikes me is, I mean, with the porn on television, it's even worse because, like, at least with the news agents, it's an active thing. You actually have to go out and procure it, and you get dirty looks from the news agents, like, and oh yeah, can I have jizz coated tits, volume 12, please? It's like, oh, you disgusting perv. But if it's on the telly, it's just like, oh, here we go. It's a bunch of men girding whilst they're ostensibly rogering a woman, and yeah, and you're watching it. So,
speaking of political sorcery, there was a whole thing going on with porn in the UK and in America as well, where, you know, that phenomenon of finding pornography mags in sort of like abandoned places or like disused quarries.
Well, we used to find them in alleyways.
Well, apparently that was an actual what do they call it? An actual operation done by this the pie lot, the pedo groups. That they were actually leaving it there deliberately to sort of get young boys into it.
That explains so fucking much, really, because why would you, if you've gone to all this effort of incurring these gentlemen's mags, go to...
That's what I said, yeah.
Shove them into a bush?
Why would you leave them in
we used to find them, they'd be ripped up and scattered down the alley, is where we used to find them.
But why would you leave your cherished porn collection in sort of like abandoned places where the slugs are going to eat them? You know, surely you'd stash them, wouldn't you, in your bedroom or something, under your pillow or something?
Or at the very least, you burn them or something. But
it's a great channel. Yeah.
I thought it was weird that they used to rip them up as well. Are you aware of that phenomenon, the ripped up porn mag? So all the pages would be ripped up and scattered down an alleyway in my local area.
I want to say I was unfortunate and I was never near one of the pie catchment areas. So I never discovered any Grumble mags, ripped up or not. But Nicola says in the chat, that explains why we found these on playgrounds and stuff.
Yeah. Also, I would say like more in like abandoned sort of places, these outskirt places, because obviously
why did they never follow it up then?
Well, they did. No, they did. Because if you're leaving porn in, say, a disused railway tunnel, but young boys are going to find it. And so, like, if you're a pedo, if you suddenly sort of appear at this place, the young boys are already programmed to be interested in sex, aren't they? So
you like those tits? I've got a video with them on. You can come to my place and you can watch it.
Trying to come back and see my porno videos. That's a new twist on you want us to come back and see my puppies, isn't it?
In the West Country, there were actual cases of perverts leaving packets of cigarettes with a couple of cigarettes in and a piece of paper and one of those little sort of bingo pens in the actual cigarette packet. And they'd write questions on it, like say, do you boys come here a lot? Like, do you wank here sometimes? And, you know, people were using it to contact people, yeah. There's a guy called Weapon Collector on YouTube. He's done a whole video on it. Yeah, he used to find these cigarette packets with like a couple of fags in it, you know, to attract the young lads, and with one of these little bingo pens and this creepy like notes in the packets, you know, like asking for their phone numbers and stuff. Yeah, fucking crazy.
Weird.
Yeah.
Especially back then, if it was quite a while ago, because it'd be their house phone number, wouldn't it?
This was like the early 80s, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be like the house phone number. That's just so odd, isn't it?
That was a whole operation, wasn't it? The Pie. They were an organised group, like definitely, yeah.
Well, Harriet Harman. What did Harriet Harman do for him? Was she some sort of legal for him? Wasn't paralegal?
That was before she was an MP, wasn't it? She was in that commission for libertarian things, whatever it was, wasn't it?
Libertarianism, the great evil,
she,
the great evil of our times.
When I found out libertarianism was basically like, I want to grow my marijuana plants and have my porn stash and do things to kids. I'm like, okay, yeah. So it's basically drug dealers and child sex things. So what can I do? Which is what political movement can I be in now? And it's like, okay, there's this thing on Telegram called British Groypers Chat, because there's a Turning Point. As I found out, Turning Point Greg's is not the original thing. There's a Turning Point UK, and unlike Turning Point Greg's, they're not funny. So the idea of this chat is just like go to various places where they're doing these public talks and just go up and ask them embarrassing questions.
Oh, we're going to start. Are our boys going to start doing it then? Are they?
Well, that was the thing, you see, because I was in this chat and I could tell immediately they were having the various shills written, and there was an argument. So I just sort of innocently asked. I said, because they were saying about how evil fascism and totalitarianism is, and I said, "What's wrong with fascism?" And the answer was everything. You just want to kill everyone. I was like, no, I don't. I just want to know what's bad about fascism. And they couldn't actually tell me a single thing. They were just like, oh, book burnings and the shower and
yeah. Do you know what books they were burning? The manuals on how to fucking turn boy kids into girl kids. That's what they were burning. Those fucking manuals, weren't they?
Well, I mean, it wasn't even like turning like boys into girls. It's a case of like you can. God, I really regret seeing it. The horrible gory photos showing like you can graft a piece of skin on here, and now girls can pretend they're men, and you can put an axe wound in there and pretend that you're a girl now, and it's just like no. And then 45% of these trannies commit suicide afterwards because they're eventually able to realise they're living a lie. And
do you think trans surgery is some sort of ritual then? Zero.
Well, it's the alchemical androgyne, isn't it?
Yeah, and it takes you back to Baphomet as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, Baphomet's a tranny.
Yeah, it's the like it's difficult to explain, but yeah, that's one of the alchemical goals, to create the androgyne, the sort of the first being before Adam and Eve were created, kind of thing. Apparently, they believe that before Adam and Eve was created, they think that we were all like a male and female together, and we could self-generate babies and crazy shit. Yeah. Well, maybe it's true. I don't know. Because all this pedo stuff was going on in the occult scene in the 80s. They infiltrated the occult scene.
I mean, I remember the satanic panic stories. I mean, do you think there's because it used to just get hand waved away, didn't it? So do you believe there was something to it, or?
Well, at the time in the early 80s, there was all to do with occult fanzines. You know, pre-internet, we all used to communicate with fanzines, and all of a sudden, this really odd, creepy fanzine appeared called Ganymede, which is like based on the Greek myth of pederasty, basically. And this Ganymede magazine was run by someone called Jacob Rabinowitz, and they were infiltrating the occult scene, trying to sort of. Because when I was into it, I found it all exciting, but it was only later when I realised it was just an excuse for degeneracy. Really, you know, like. You've got to explore all your sort of furthest desires and all that, and it was just a cover for degeneracy and paedophilia, basically. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even want to get into that. I mean, other people have done to death Anton LaVey and Satanism and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, from my understanding, it seemed to be that. Do I want to trivialise what his name Aleister Crowley did? Because I could be really flippant and just sort of sum up with like, but actually no, I'll leave that to other people.
I hate to say it, but he was certainly pro-paedophilia, Aleister Crowley, and I'll stand by that because we've seen the proof.
Oh,
of it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I'm just sort of wondering, like, was he a pedo first and put all this magic in as an afterthought, or was it that he saw that abusing children was a means to an end?
Yeah, well, it's like an excuse, isn't it? You know, it's just like because the ancients used children as seers, didn't they, to see into the other realms? So I think it was something to do with that sort of.
I think it's been sort of understood for like since time immemorial that children's energy is especially before puberty is quite important, sacred, and potent. So that's why you got all these evil people which harvest their blood and abuse them and do all these other demonic things to them to gain their power.
Children have a direct line clairvoyantly into these other realms, and they're used as like intermediaries between the magician and these other realms, kind of, because they're too scared to do it themselves. Kind
of. This is why the ghost episode you did disturbed me, because when you're talking about ghosts appearing in the corners of a room, the only time I've ever seen any apparition, I was about 14 years old. And I think that actually that age is quite significant. I'll explain a bit later. And it was just this thing in the corner of the room, and it was utterly, utterly evil. It was just this black, indistinct presence. And even when I had all the lights on, it was still there. I knew it was there. And I basically had to start crying and screaming. So my parents would come in, open the door, and dispelled it.
Was it like a formless shape, like an indistinct? Yeah, I've met things like that. Yeah,
it was like a black mist in the corner. And the thing is, I was talking to my dad because he brought it up like a few years afterwards, many years afterwards, and said because he had sleep paralysis, and he said that he had like this horrible goblin creature sitting on his chest. And he remembers one day he was sitting in the corner. But it's not really a corner, it was kind of in the middle because he had this wardrobe built and it was built either side of the sink in his room, which was in the middle. And he said the goblin was sat there. And then one day he just looked at it. It's just like, I know what you are. No, go away. And he managed to say that, and it did. But I didn't have any sort of. I mean, for a start, I didn't know what it was. That was the thing. It was incomprehensible. All I could understand it was evil. There was no doubt in my mind that it was. And I think the crying as well. So I just sort of felt that being in its presence was infecting me and making me worse, because I was a lot unhappier after that time. And I think this is something that's not really understood, but when children go through puberty, there is a big change in their energy, and when they're adults, they don't have the same energy and youthful exuberance that they once did. And this sort of suspicion of mine was confirmed later when it seems that poltergeist activity happens, especially around pubescent girls.
Yeah,
they have untapped, uncontrolled telekinetic energy, and because they're going through these changes where they can be upset and very emotional, things will go flying around the room quite violently, and it's very scary. And it seems to go away when they grow up and when they calm down and reach that maturity.
It's like the creepy pasta.
There's quite a few things that centre around that. You got the Enfield haunting, you got Borley Rectory, and you've also got one we're going to do an episode on, Jeff the Talking Mongoose. That centres around a girl as well, doesn't it?
It's all connected with sleepover parties, isn't it? And doing Ouija boards and Black Mary and things like that. When adolescent girls get together for a sleepover party and they start doing like serious magical rituals, basically, and all sorts of weird stuff happens because the energy's there to back it up and to give it form. And yeah, it's dangerous stuff. They don't know what they're dealing with. You know?
Do you think they're actually in charge of it, or do you think like they get like a psychic nudge towards having a dabble with it?
Well, it's just the intent there.
Is it? I just wonder whether it was their idea or whether it's not their idea, and they get kind of like psychically nudged by an evil force into doing it.
Oh, very possibly, yeah. Because they have the intent. The intent is there to do some creepy ritual, but they've got all this untapped energy, like which will give this intent form, in this world, and yeah. It's
I mean,
dangerous stuff.
I agree with you, Zero. I would never participate in the Ouija board, although I have done a few tarot readings before. But I've done them with myself, and I've only ever done them with people I'm closely associated with, because I wouldn't do it on a stranger. My dad was invited to a place once, and they had a Ouija board out, and he was very skeptical about it. But he said he'd join in with them, and nothing was happening. So he said, "Oh, I thought as a bit of fun, I get the Ouija board going." So I started pushing it in various directions, and then they were spelling out various things. He even told me what they were spelling out, and it said people getting freaked out. I said, well, don't you realise that even though you're being skeptical, you're the one that instigated it, and so you were being used as a toy? I says, oh no, I was in complete control of it all the time. I said, yeah, but were you? And so this is the thing. I think a Ouija board is a prop where it can be used like auto writing. Have you heard about Clark's auto writing?
Yeah.
And it just, you get unusual things happen.
They're a very special thing, Ouija boards. They're a very, very special case on their own, I think. Like, there's just something about them, isn't there? It's just like very dark.
It's a tool for divination, and this is one of the things I always was steered clear of divination tools because it's sorcery. But then someone explained to me with tarot, and I said, no, what it is it's a psychological tool where all you're doing is you put cards into a certain configuration, you read the various meanings, and because there's numerous, like, multiple reasonings with them, it's vague enough that you can concoct your own story, and the story you concoct is based entirely on memories which it conjures up at the time. So it's a useful psychological tool for building up a narrative, and I liked that because I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But having done tarot a few times now, I can say it's something I would recommend to anybody to have a go at.
I'd say
interesting stories.
I'd say all divination is controlled by spirits, like I Ching and tarot. I don't think it is like a psychological thing. I think it's actually contacting spirits when you're doing divination. It's those who tell you the answers. Like, with I Ching,
my question
there's intelligence
in that spirit. Which spirit's controlling it? Is it external to yourself, or is it internal to yourself? Is it like an unconscious part of you which sometimes manifests in malevolent ways?
That's the tricky thing. Are they intelligent, like independent, sentient entities, or are they parts of our subconscious, these spirits? It's a tricky. I think you either tend to fall into one camp or the other, really. Yeah, I'm not sure where I stand. But yeah.
The problem with this, and I think this is what a lot of people probably don't realise, is it's one of those things. It's like with these spirits, is where do they come from?
Well, that's it. Yeah. And like, did God create them? But then again, it gets to the thing. Well, who created God? That old chestnut, doesn't it? It's
the same with the Big Bang, isn't it? The big to me, the Big Bang requires exactly the same amount of faith.
That's mental, isn't it?
As God creating the universe, isn't it? Because you.
Please give us this one miracle. Granted, this is one miracle, so we can have our material view of the universe and how it came to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Big Bang's a load of bollocks, but I mean, my take on it is it expands and collapses like a lung, but that's for another show, really. But my point with the spirits is, and this brings me to mind a news story I read recently. I wonder, these spirits which people have, if they are generated within themselves and go bad, or if they are entities which were not part of them, which become attached to them and then take them over, which I think we can certainly see in the cases of people like Miley Cyrus, where you can tell she clearly was abused.
Well, don't they say Miley Cyrus was killed, wasn't she? That's not the same Miley Cyrus, is it? She was sacrificed.
Or if the spirit that was Miley Cyrus was taken out of a body and some demon put in place, I can well believe that.
Yeah.
It's just like the body of Miley Cyrus exists, but a spirit is long gone. But this is the thing. There was a story. Do you remember the story of the girl who was raped in Cyprus by 19 men?
Yeah,
By
recently,
the
yeah.
4B2s, that one.
Yeah, and then they managed to turn it around and say, no, you raped all 19 of us, and how dare you accuse us of rape?
Yeah.
And so she had to apologize to them, and she's been traumatized since then because they're going to take her to court, civil court, where they're going to sue her for saying mean things, and they're saying that she's now hearing voices, and I could well suspect that whilst she was being raped, that demons which were attached to these 19 men have probably now sort of transferred and glommed onto her because they're feeding on their suffering.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, it's the lineage, isn't it? A lot of satanic groups use that, where you have the new initiate has sex with the high priestess, and a demon is passed on to them. Yeah, that's a definite thing. That is, yeah.
Grief
Yeah,
just
it's
said
weird stuff.
he was walking down the high street today at 8 p.m., spot a new gym, look in the window, 3 poles, 15, 8, 30-year-olds, learning to be a whore, posters in window, empowering fitness with Michelle. He says, not 8, sorry, earlier. Maybe I should film through the window. Don't want to get called a nonce, though. But, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's these days we've got child drag queens and other, like, public
Well,
child
you got the
abuse,
trannies reading to kids dressed as literal demons, aren't they?
where they're having the children crawling over them and doing sexually suggestive things in front of them.
While the parents look on and smile, yeah.
Or worse, they encourage them, and they've got mothers saying, "Yeah, go up and sit on her lap, on the drag queen's lap, sit on her lap."
Yeah, prostitution has long been linked with like demonology. Yeah, definitely. Malachi Martin talks about that in his what book is it? Oh, I can't, Hostage to the Devil. He talks about that. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine. One imagine whores getting like various spirits glommed onto them because you know all the men they've been with, and those Johns have got various sort of bad things on them. So I guess China just gets tacked on with them, even if they
Yeah.
wear. There's no psychic condom.
Carl Jung wrote an interesting book about all this called the Psychology of the Transference. Yeah, when he talks about how like psychologists, if they're not careful, they'll absorb into themselves their patients' obsessions and that. You know, that'll transfer to them. Yeah. You wrote a whole book on it, yeah.
I mean, Neck and Croak, he's given me, still haven't read it, but it's a book called Young and the Tarot. And I saw it when I was in his bog. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting reading. Neck and Croak, can I have this book? Yes, you may have this book. Thanks, mate. You are most welcome. He talks like Emperor Palpatine in real life.
Carl Jung had all sorts of weird paranormal stuff happening to him, didn't he? He had like poltergeist stuff happening to him and his family. Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Did Sigmund Freud ever try and do black magic on him?
I wouldn't be surprised because I wouldn't trust Sigmund Freud to chop wood out the back. You know, I mean, he's like completely fucking evil as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Well, you know, chopping wood, chopping force.
Well, they reckon is it his great nephew was involved in the Maddie McCann, don't they?
Oh
what?
God!
Allegedly involved in.
Grief says if he hasn't found a bird by 35, he's going to have to bag a single mum. I'm just like, Grief, hold out. It's amazing the amount of work they've done on sex robots. I mean, you'll literally have a Cherry 2000 by the time you're 35. And we know we can cancel women at that point. Have you seen Cherry 2000?
Nah.
Hemi, have you seen Cherry 2000?
No, I do think we need to start winding this stream up though, because we've gone way off of what we're supposed to be talking about.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I need to.
Are these literally all the pent up questions from when you've been listening to the back catalogue? Is it? Is that what it is?
I'm hardly enjoying all this. No, it's great.
Pretty much. I've had to bottle it up for too long, and I needed to come on and just shoot the shit with.
Are you back regular now then, Hobbit? Or?
Probably not, but you know, if it's Fortean times, I can go on it without being too political.
Yeah.
I've only had one drink today, so I'm all right.
Right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
getting towards that ratio. As the longer the stream proceeds, the more pissed I get. So it's getting a bit. But we still ain't got to the best bit, like the magical war against Margaret Thatcher. But we'll do it
Oh,
next.
tell me. Oh God, I'm gonna have to tune in next week for
Are we
that
gonna
then.
put a pin it there and then do a part 3?
I'm happy to carry on, but if you want to leave it to next week, that's
Oh,
fine.
Hobby, I'll let you have the deciding vote.
Yeah, no, he's right. It's 9 o'clock. Let's wrap it up and do other things.
Yeah.
There's
I think, yeah.
There's a stream I really want to watch, but I don't think I'm going to recommend it to you guys because I don't know how to explain it. It's one of those things I enjoy, and yeah.
So do you think we should do part 3? Turn it in like a wrap up into the 80s, and we'll talk about Diana and Jill Dando, because you want to talk about Jill Dando as well, didn't you?
Yeah. That's a crazy one. That one, yeah.
So we can wrap all that. We'll do it. We'll do a political hits the 80s next week then.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, right then. So, Zero, have you got your channel? Have you done anything yet?
Things will be up this weekend, hopefully. I've got some audio tapes I need to put onto digital and upload. Yeah, there's stuff in the works. Yeah.
Oh, I've got a channel. It's called Hobbit Speaks, and I've done a video called 42 Minutes of Ford Escort ASMR. It's actually pretty good because it was as if you guys are in the Telegram chat, occasionally I do travelogues as they've been called, where I'll just voice my thoughts whilst I'm driving, and I did one of those using the microphone I'm speaking into now because it's a field mic, and I just thought, okay, I've got this audio, I need to intersperse some more footage with it. Originally, I wanted to put some rally driving stuff with it, but if you use other people's footage, YouTube gets they're really hot shit on copyright striking content. So I made my own footage from a game called Project Cars.
Before I wrap up, did you realise this is episode 13?
Ooh, lucky for some.
Yeah.
Not for me though. Not today.
Actually, Friday the 13th is lucky for me because I passed my driving test on a Friday 13th.
I think I passed my test on the 13th as well. No, it was in 2013. Hang on. No, I don't. Yeah, no, it was because 5 days afterwards, I was driving to my next job, and I was just like, "Oh, it's a good thing I passed my test."
God, driving seems magical to me because I can't drive, but I can't understand how you do it. I mean, bloody hell, that's like
it's like operating an organ, except you got a twisty turny bit.
Yeah.
Right then, so I've now set up a WordPress site. So if you want old episodes of podcasts I do, go to hemifordgrey.home.blog. I'll have to carry on bullying Capstan because he's going to redo his gun episode, but longer with better sources.
Oh God, can I be on there? Can I be one? But what about this gun though?
No, he's gonna pre-record it, and we're gonna put it up on my channel.
Oh yeah, that's it. Because he's going to talk more about the legality of it. I'm more interested in the mechanisms and how they work.
And also, I've been in talks with Capstan, and he's agreed to come on here, and we're gonna do a Dunblane episode.
Oh yeah, he'd be good for that.
Yeah, because you've got some Dunblane stuff to do, haven't you, Zero?
I got a bit on that, yeah. Dubious shit, yeah. Fucking hell.
But even Capstan, our resident skeptic, doesn't like the smell of Dunblane,
Yeah.
so it must be bad.
And that other guy. Who's that other guy? The first one. Oh, what's his name there?
Oh, Michael Ryan.
Yeah, I've got some stuff on him. Yeah, that's interesting.
Hungerford.
Yeah, it goes into ley lines and sites of power and that. Yeah.
Is that a full episode for Hungerford? Is it, or are we just going to stick it in with Dunblane?
Yeah, we could merge them. Yeah, because there's some interesting stuff with that guy. Yeah, Michael. What's his name?
Yeah. Right. So that's us done. Good night, all.
Bye.